Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. We're coming to you on this first day of December. It is a Monday, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matters. Get to the stories that matter today. Protesters trooped to the People Power Monument anew for the Trillion Peso March, a rally that saw prominent voices renew calls for accountability, anti-corruption reform, and the passage of the anti-political dynasty law. A new type of pork barrel hidden under what is called allocable funds has quietly taken root in the DPWH budget. A new investigation by PCIJ shows Representatives Sandro Marcos and Martin Romualdez receiving the biggest shares from 2023 to 2025. And the National University reclaims cheer dance supremacy, securing its 9th UAAP cheer dance title and making history as the most decorated team in the league. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, protesters gathered at the People Power Monument along EDSA in Quezon City on Sunday for the second Trillion Peso March. Here is a report.
The protesters who gathered at the People Power Monument stood their ground despite the rain. Several prominent personalities took the stage, including Akbayan Representatives Chel Jokno and Percy Sendanya, Liberal Party President Erin Tanyada, and Miss Universe 2018 Catriona Gray. Jokno underscored what he called the administration's outstanding debts, including the passage of the Open BICAM and the long-delayed anti-political dynasty law.
Utang sa tamang pamamahala, pero alam nyo mga kasama, palagay ko, hindi nila kayang bayaran yan Kasi hindi naman sila marunong mag-good governance. Kaya tayo na sa 2028 ang magpapalit sa kanila. Tama ba? Marami pang utang itong administrasyon ito. May utang sila. Open BICAM, kaya nga nangyari ang mga insertion na yan. Dahil sinikreto nila ang BICAM nung last budget. Ang kailangan maramdaman nila yung kamay na bakal ng ating batas. At yan ang utang, isa pang utang ng ating pamahalaan. At pinakamalaki sigurong utang ito, yung utang nila sa anti-political dynasty bill. Papayag ba tayo na hindi may sasabatas yan? Oo, sisingilin! At sisingilin natin yung mga yan!
Catriona Gray, meanwhile, issued bold challenges aimed at the Ombudsman and other key institutions.
When corruption wins, yung mga nakaupo lang ang nananalo. Sila na ang nabubusog. Sila ang nakakauwi sa mga mansyon sa Amerika. Sila ang nakakabili ng designer bags. Habang ang taong ng bayan lumulubog sa baha, sa utang at sa kahirapan. To the Ombudsman, file the cases now! To the senators, suspend the senators implicated! And to the Congress, pass the anti-political dynasty bill! Because power should not be inherited. It should be earned through service of the people.
Attendance at the People Power Monument was notably lower compared to the September 21 rally. But according to political strategist Ronald Llamas, the reduced turnout was expected as yesterday's demonstrations were held nationwide.
Tuloy yung anti-corruption probe, magpakulong ng mga guilty ASAP, huwag matagal, at bawiin ang mga ninakaw. Pero gawin ito within the legal framework. Huwag pumunta sa installation ni Sara. Huwag pumunta sa isang military junta.
Various parishes and dioceses across the country organized their own gatherings. According to Father Raul Puti Enriquez of the Clergy for Good Governance, about 90 dioceses nationwide participated in yesterday's protest.
Ang iba hindi na pumunta rito, kaya ang ginawa namin talagang mas maganda, dumadagundong.
No placards calling for the resignations of PBBM or Sara were seen as organizers emphasized their opposition to any form of military junta. Their message remained clear: hold accountable those who must be held accountable and return the stolen funds. The Trillion Peso March also featured performances from OPM artists Ben and Maki.
Patuloy tayong mga lampag para ipasa ng Kongreso ang batas para tapusin ang mga political dynasty! At sama-sama nating iboto rin ang mga tamang leader sa 2020. Tama ba yun?
Protests were held in several provinces on Sunday, that's including Baguio, Davao, Cebu, and Antique. Their message echoed that of rallies in Metro Manila, urging the government to prioritize transparency, accountability, and the welfare of communities. The Armed Forces of the Philippines welcomed the manifesto from the Association of General and Flag Officers, saying it reinforces the military's commitment to the Constitution. Issued on November 29, the manifesto rejected calls for destabilization and emphasized that the AFP must remain non-partisan. Support from both active and retired officers, the military said, highlights unity, professionalism, and respect for civilian authority across all ranks. The AFP added that reaffirmation strengthens its role as a stabilizing force and a steadfast guardian of democracy in the Philippines. And coming right up, the PCIJ says a new form of pork barrel is quietly embedded in the DPWH budget, with billions in allocable funds flowing to top allies of the administration. Congressman Leandro Leviste joins us to react to the report and what it means for budget transparency. Keep it here. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. A new form of pork barrel has emerged in the Department of Public Works and Highways budget, with Ilocos Norte Representative Sandro Marcos and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez allegedly receiving the biggest allocations from 2023 to 2025. That's according to a report by the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, or PCIJ. The PCIJ described the DPWH's allocable funds as discretionary and politically motivated, allowing lawmakers to select district projects rather than prioritizing public needs. These allocations are part of the National Expenditure Program, the budget submitted by President to Congress. Each district is given a funding ceiling, with engineers presenting lawmakers a menu of projects that fit the allocation. The report noted that the formula for determining these amounts remains unclear and is reportedly known only to former DPWH Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral. From 2023 to 2025, Sandro Marcos's district received nearly 15.8 billion pesos, followed by Romualdez's 14.4 billion pesos. And joining us now to react to this story, we have Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste. Magandang umaga. Thank you for joining us again.
Magandang umaga po.
Okay, I hope you've read this report by the PCIJ on allocables and non-allocables allegedly being the new pork in the budget. What is your reaction to that? Did you also see that upon reviewing the 2026 budget?
Yes, all of us congressmen get a list of projects in our district that are allocable and those in our district which are not allocable. And it's good that people are discussing this now, because there should really be reform on the amounts that are being decided per district allocable. Because, as you noted in your introduction, it is claimed that only a former undersecretary of the DPWH understands how these amounts were computed, and yet it remains the basis for the amounts in the 2026 budget. But first, I would like to note that it should come as no surprise that the projects in the budget are decided with the input of people in Congress and throughout the legislature, because that's, I think, how things have always been. But at the very least, what we should do is be more transparent on what the projects that each member of Congress or the Senate proposes, so that when the projects end up being substandard, if they do, then the proponent can somehow explain if they had any hand in making it so. So one nice development from all of these recent issues has been that there is a call for increased transparency, and we are not yet doing so. So if we can have all of the projects in the current and even the past budgets proponents be disclosed to the public, then that would go a long way, I think, to making the projects of better quality and have less corruption.
Okay, so you confirm the titles allocable and non-allocable.
Yes, I could actually show that as a district representative, the DPWH gives me a list of projects in my budget, and the district projects are either tagged as allocable and non-allocable. And if they are allocable, then I, as the district representative, can errata or amend them.
Ah, okay. And you're given a list, a menu of projects that you want to insert or you want to amend. Tama ba?
Yes, the regional budget proposal, if I'm not mistaken, that's the DPWH's term, can be many times more than the available budget for my district. And in that larger menu, the DPWH can select what project come into the budget, and the district representative can swap out the projects that they would want in the budget instead. So in effect, the district representative can decide how to use the respective allocable budget. But the term non-allocable doesn't mean that the outside allocable projects are not pork barrel either. In fact, I think the article would also show that they are even more rife in some cases with corruption, because that's where of parking by, for example, contractors who have reportedly been paying for projects to be included in this non-allocable part of the budget. It's also allocable, just that it's decided not by the district representative, but by someone higher up in the system.
Okay, so how does the DPWH send you the list of allocable and non-allocables?
It is given to every congressman at the publication of the National Expenditure Program.
After the NEP. And then if may papalitan kayo doon, does the DPWH contest those changes at least, or debate with the congressman, or kayo ang masusunod? You have the last say?
Yes, the congressman has the say on at least the allocable in his district. And if I can explain the theory why the allocable and non-allocable was created in 2022 for the 2023 budget, it was because with the increase in the DPWH budget, the non-allocable actually exceeded already in amount the allocable budget. There's 401 billion pesos of allocable, and everything in excess of that is basically non-allocable, which in the 2023 budget was maybe 500, and in the 24 and 25 budget was around 600 billion pesos.
Wow.
In the 2026 budget, it's around only 95, close to 100 billion pesos, but that because of the large amount of budget that is not allocable to the district representative, the district representative is basically expected to say, okay, you can only touch or make pakialam the allocable projects in your district, but it's actually more of a way to ensure that the district representative knows he cannot touch the projects that are in his district but proposed or inserted by someone else.
And moving on to your district over in Batangas, has this been abused? Was this uncovered because of the past administration? Kasi you sounded the alarm also on Edwin Guardiola, who was selling, allegedly selling projects to contractors. So in your district, has that been abused?
Yes, I found there were over 22 billion pesos of non-allocable projects that were in a list in the office of former Undersecretary Cabral as of August 2024. That ended up being awarded to companies linked to Congressman Garjola in 2025. And in my district, there is, I think, 794 million pesos of non-allocable Garjola-linked projects in 2025. These are not projects that were proposed by the district representative. They appeared in the district because of the supposed insertions by Congressman Garjola.
Okay, and what projects are usually under the non-allocable?
Well, these are 6 road projects that were inserted, and they, I guess, are also a sign that it's not just flood control that's the issue. I think there's also flood control projects that are needed in the country. It's the way that the budget is being written that is the issue.
Okay,
And
but
the fact that, bid rigging remains widespread. So if you can have more transparency on what the project proponents are, then hopefully you can also have more scrutiny on if the contractor that ends up doing the project is somehow linked to the project proponent.
Wait, but the non-allocable budget, this is reserved for national highways, hindi ba? Because it's outside the jurisdiction of the local government.
Many of the flood control projects for the 2026 budget were in the non-allocable, but of course, as you know, they were scrapped in the resubmission of the NEP. But there's all kinds of projects that are in the non-allocable. I mean, in my district in 2026, we even have renovations of the DPWH office as one of the non-allocable projects. So they come in all kinds, and some are legitimate, but others are not.
Okay, so si Congressman Guardiola, if he does sell the non-allocable projects, allegedly, kanino niya nilalako ito? Sa contractors lang? Is this also being sold to project proponents?
So it happens in the 2025 budget that the non-allocable projects that he ended up being proposed into the budget were implemented by companies linked to him. So I'm not sure if you can say that he sold those projects. Other projects that he inserts allegedly into the budget may have been sold to proponents, but the ones that we have identified are the ones that are being implemented by companies linked to him.
Okay.
But rather than the seller of that budget would not have been Congressman Garjola because he was the end consumer of it. The seller of the budget is whoever wrote the DPWH budget. And that's why I think the focus in the ICI and other investigations on ghost projects, which account for only 1% of the DPWH budget, is only the tip of the iceberg because there is a far larger amount at stake. Allegedly, almost 100% of bids are rigged. And together with that, then, is the issues on the writing of the budget.
So the 2026 budget is still, it still has room for a lot of corruption and pork to happen.
Yes. For the media that are watching this interview, it would be good to ask the DPWH why they are not releasing a list of the non-allocable projects in the 2026 NEP, because the DPWH is now saying, we don't know what that is, that was the previous leadership. But the new NEP still has almost 100 billion of non-allocable projects. You can say that because every congressman is given that list, but it's just not consolidated on a nationwide basis. If we can then filter out what are the non-allocable projects nationwide, we can see what are all of these specially inserted projects that are not coming from congressmen in the budget. And many of them may be valid, but there are some that from a review of the budget you can see are highly concentrated in certain regions. And where there is a high concentration of projects allegedly being parked in certain regions, those are also the ones that historically have been most easily sold off to contractors.
So help us understand the findings of this PCIJ report with the presidential son and House Speaker Martin Romualdez being at the top of that, those who received the most allocables, most amount of allocables. What could this mean? I mean, is it reasonable?
Allocation
or
of the budget is a issue that is separate, I think, from the kickbacks on a project, because you can look at the quality of the project to determine whether there was something wrong in the implementation of the project.
So it's not 1:1, in short.
Well, there could arguably be some correlation, because if there's more budget, then there's more potential for corruption. But I don't want to say that just because someone has a big budget, it's necessarily pro-corruption. And by the way, I would like to also clarify that the allocable budget, as I said a while ago, was 401 billion pesos.
Yes.
And in the past 2 years, the non-allocable was around 600 billion pesos. And the biggest total budget actually was in other districts. If I'm not mistaken, if I can actually share this on your show, I have a list of this that I have been wanting to also be allowed to release, showing the top 3 provinces in the country by DPWH budget, and it's different from the top provinces in the country by allocable budget, because there's a lot of other projects that are inserted in Congress, in the Senate, and in the BICAM, as has been much reported. And well, one of them, for example, that has been reported is the huge fraud control projects in Oriental Mindoro, where Oriental Mindoro had 30 billion pesos just in 1 year in 2025 in one district. And that's why I'm just setting in context that who gets the biggest allocable budget is different from who gets the biggest total budget, because a lot of big budgets are also inserted after the allocable budgets are set.
Okay. So, nagbabago pa ito pagdating doon sa
Well,
GAA.
Nadadagdagan pa, because the allocable is the 401 billion that doesn't change in the past 3 years. And then the in excess of the allocable is what changes. Also because, again, the allegation is that's where a lot of the parking is done, where contractors can buy budgets. And that is the allegation. Or how 30 billion pesos ended up in just one district in 2025.
Okay, so what
So
are the top 3 provinces that ended up with the most budget?
Well, so just the example of Oriental Mindoro was there was maybe let's say there's 2 billion pesos allocable in that one district, but the GAA ended up being 30 billion pesos. So basically 28 billion pesos was added on top of the allocable.
That's number 1. Parang second po yata ay no? Bulacan? If I get it right.
Actually, that's district in the allocable, but the other top province, incidentally, was Occidental Mindoro. So the Mimaropa districts got a lot of budget in the 2025 GAA, and in previous years, actually, Cordillera districts got big budgets because instead of flood control, there was then a lot of slope protection or rock netting. And well, now there's no flood control, but there's a lot of roads that have been inserted in another region. It changes every year, really. So it's not really like there's a district where people always park their projects. I guess time that a certain area and type of project is scrutinized, gumagawa ng paraan ang mga nasa sistemang ito na humanap ng iba pang klaseng proyekto na hindi masyadong mainit.
Okay. And who could be part of that proponent list for the non-allocables?
Well, one thing that I
Congressman?
mentioned last week is that almost everyone in government has the opportunity to submit lists to the PWH, and therefore almost every office in government has some type of insertion. And I think it's less a question of who is than who is not.
Okay, so for example, if I am, what do you mean by everyone? As in parang kahit part ako ng ano?
It's not
agency.
just congressmen and senators, not even just cabinet secretaries. There are even cabinet undersecretaries that have flood control projects inserted into the budget.
And, really? But and how could what's the rationale of, for example, if I'm a secretary, what's the rationale of me being a proponent of a flood control project if I have nothing to do with flood control?
You can ask them.
Okay. Okay, so this is the list.
But
Have you seen this list at least?
Yes. So the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a lot of speculation that this happens, but the proof is that there is a list that I have seen in the office of DPWH former Undersecretary Catalina Cabral that lists every item in the National Expenditure Program and indicates if it's allocable by the district congressman or if it is outside the allocable, then it actually has proponents behind them. And the proponents are not only congressmen and senators, they are also cabinet secretaries and undersecretaries and others. There are even contractors whose names are in the internal files as proposed projects of the DPWH.
Okay. The PCIJ has said the numbers have not been released to them, the proponent list. But they also mentioned in this report that they reached out to your office for the numbers, if you would have. But nakalagay dito, all of them either refused to give out their list or said they would have to double check. Leandro Leviste in particular has been pressuring the DPWH itself to release proponent lists. So what
Yes.
list do you have in your office?
So I have a list of proponents of projects in the NEP that came from the office of former DPWH Undersecretary Catalina Cabral. DPWH is well aware and also has this list, and I am hoping that they will walk the talk on transparency and release the list of proponents that are in the computer in the office of former Undersecretary Catalina Cabral.
So it's with you, the list of proponents for allocable and non-allocables?
Yes, and I've been having private discussions asking that this list be released to the public.
And if they don't, will you release it?
I'd like them to release it first.
But is there a chance that you might release it?
Anything is possible.
Okay. Maraming salamat for that. Again, just to wrap things up, is this the reason why you said no to the 2026 budget? Because maraming nagulat you were the only majority congressman that said no to this to the general appropriations bill.
I cited two reasons. One is that the prices were then still too high, and I thank the DPWH for decreasing them, but I think they could still be decreased some more. But it's a good start. And second, that the budget allocation seems a bit arbitrary because Calabarzon is 15% of the country's population and GDP, but only 10% of the DPWH budget. And the reason why I'm passionate about this question on the allocation of budgets is particularly because I represent a Calabarzon district. And if we followed an equation or a formula on how much to allocate the budget, it is not only going to make it more equitable for populous regions and districts, but it's also going to end the system of selling budgets in the DPWH.
Okay. So, ihahabol ko lang yung errata, kasi you mentioned it a while ago, that in the 2026 budget, actually, it says here in the PCIJ report that congressmen were given a chance to move or move their budget to have several types of errata para hindi matapyas yung pera because nga the public was looking into this 2026 budget already. So is this true that there's this kind of presentation where you could convert your DPWH budget and siphon it to farm-to-market roads, irrigation projects, classroom facilities, health facilities, housing projects, and airport building and facilities?
Yes, that presentation is true. And after that presentation was circulated in Congress, there have been many then changes into the budget. But basically, the budget did not decrease. It was just moved from flood control to other things also selected by Congress.
But this presentation came from the DPWH?
From Congress.
From Congress. Which office issued this presentation?
It was given to all the members of Congress, so I think it's part of the deliberations by the Committee on Appropriations.
So the public should also look into all of these projects, kung saan napunta yung pera?
Yes, I think that it would be good for the Committee on Appropriations to be transparent on how the decisions on where to allocate the 255 billion of the flood control were made. And they've shown what the output was, and it's good that it's shifted to education, health, and agriculture. But it would be good to show a little bit more on the internal process for how the allocations were decided.
Oh, because that was the president's directive also to shift the budget from flood control to the education sector, right, and to the agriculture sector. But as to the rationale, of course, it has to fit within the goals and the plans of the administration.
And if I can be a little bit more granular, let's say that they shifted a budget to 10 million pesos worth of farm-to-market roads or 20 billion pesos worth of classrooms. They're also going to have to distribute that among 254 congressional districts. And there are certain numbers already being given out. Every congressman gets this much million of farm-to-market roads and this much million of classrooms. It would be good if we be transparent on what those numbers are and how the budget is allocated per district.
Okay, speaking of saan galing ang pera, there were photos over the weekend of you buying 250,000 Noche Buena packs. Did all of that come from your salary? Medyo malaki yun, ha?
So this is the second year that I'm giving out the Noche Buena in my district. This is my personal contribution to give my district mates a Merry Christmas.
So it comes from personal funds, all of it?
Yes.
Baka pwede rin kami dito sa sa Quezon City.
Well,
joke lang.
Some people are saying that we should have less extra, but I note the DTI saying that 500 pesos can buy a Noche Buena pack. Maybe if we lower taxes, then 500 pesos can go a longer way, and that's one thing I'm advocating, so that we don't have to rely on government giving out Noche Buena per family.
So magkano yung Noche Buena pack nasa picture mo?
Mga 500 din.
Saktong 500?
Yes.
Kasama na yung lalagyan?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Siguro kailangan natin malaman yung supplier na yan. But the 250,000 definitely brings the price down, right? Thank you for joining us this morning, and we hope if it isn't the DPWH, that your office will release this list, proponent list, for allocables and non-allocables. Thank you for helping us understand that latest PCIJ report. We have Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste. Anti-corruption rallies were not only held in Quezon City, protesters also gathered in Manila with groups calling for the resignation of President Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte. More in this report.
Tensions flared between some protesters and supporters of President Bongbong Marcos at the height of the Bayan Group's demonstration on Recto Avenue in Manila on November 30. The man, identified as Roger Alcantara from Bacolod City, was wearing a red shirt bearing the image of the president. Several members of Bayan confronted him and told him to leave, but he refused. The exchange grew heated until the Marcos supporter eventually distanced himself from the group. As the protest continued, Bayan members smashed and beat a large effigy, a crocodile-tailed figure with the faces of the president and the vice president Sara Duterte. Beyond calls to hold corrupt government officials accountable, Bayan also wants Marcos and VP Sara to step down. The protest on Recto did not last long after police blocked the area. In a separate incident nearby, Manila Police District officers intervened after a man with a covered face and a chako tried to blend in with protesters. He claimed the weapon was for self-defense. Protesters denied he was with them, and police escorted him out of the area. During that protest, Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla arrived and stood on top of a barricaded container van. Several protesters immediately shouted at him. But Remulla appeared unfazed and flashed a peace sign, further irritating some of the protesters.
Oh, nakita mo! Paano pa sinisan? Yabang ko, tila mo! Kapal na mukha eh!
The secretary said he did not take the cussing personally. He said he understands the sentiments of those protesting against corruption.
Wala naman dapat ikatakot eh. Tsaka dapat pakita ko rin na there is a side of government that listens. Diba, nakinig lang, hindi ako sumagot sa kanila, minumuro nila ako, okay lang yun, karapatan nila yun. Diba? But I will never fight back.
According to the NCRPO, about 16,000 PNP personnel were deployed across Manila and Quezon City for crowd control and security. Police denied allegations of overkill, saying the deployment was part of their preparedness measures while respecting public order and the rights of protesters.
Don't go away. More matters to discuss after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here in One News. As we reported, the PCIJ reveals that the president's son, Representative Sandro Marcos, and cousin, Representative Martin Romualdez, received the largest shares of supposed allocable funds in the DPWH budget from 2023 to 2025. The PCIJ calls these allocable funds the new form of pork barrel, discretionary, politically motivated, and often directed to projects chosen by lawmakers. The younger Marcos's district in Ilocos Norte allegedly received 15.8 billion pesos from these funds, while Romualdez's district in Leyte got 14.4 billion pesos, far exceeding allocations for most other districts. Now, according to the PCIJ, allocable funds are assigned to each congressional district, with district engineers offering lawmakers a menu of projects within the ceiling. The formula for determining the amount, however, remains unclear. To discuss that report, we have PCIJ reporter Gwen Latoza, who was the author of this report. Thank you so much for joining us on Morning Matters.
Hi, good morning, Gretchen. Thanks for having me again.
I hope you heard that interview with Congressman Leviste.
Yeah, I got like the last parts of it, but yeah.
Oo. So sabi niya, meron daw siyang listahan nitong mga proponent ng allocables and non-allocables. So is this what you've been asking for from his office?
Yeah, so he was among the lawmakers kasi who has publicly divulged na kilala nila yung mga nag-insert either sa NEP or the President's budget and even sa General Appropriations Act or the final version of our budget. So I followed my instincts. I tried to ask all of them, but it's either they refused or they said they will double check. And they've been, at least Congressman Leandro has been putting the pressure on the DPWH to release the list because sa kanila din naman nanggaling and sila yung custodian of that information. So yeah.
Well, Congressman Leviste has confirmed yun nga yung categories na allocables and non-allocables na binibigay yan sa kanilang DPWH, no? But it has been a day since this striking headline, no? Ang sabi mo dito sa headline nyo ay allocables are the new pork, Sandro Marcos and Martin Romualdez are the new pork barrel king. So what has been the reaction to that? Wala pa namang threat or of any kind?
Wala pa naman threats,
Okay.
but I can tell you stories off the record. But in terms of people from high up, haven't received any threats naman. But I think it really captured the attention of people in general across all political spectrum, and I think the table helps in the sense that nakikita nila kung sino yung district congressman nila. And I've seen more local publications zero in on the allocables and non-allocables on their districts that personally the PCIJ obviously cannot dissect every one of them, but I think helpful that we release the list in the first place so that more people, not only journalists but citizens themselves, can look into
Understand.
the number because they would know best kung ano yung nangyayari sa kanilang mga lugar.
Okay, just to set the baseline,
Yes.
similar to what Congressman Leandro Leviste did a while ago, itong allocables at non-allocables ay parte ng proseso. Kumbaga, yung congressman talaga ang may say sa kung ano yung dapat sa distrito niya. But to help us to define, from your research, what are allocables? Ano yung sakop niya? Same as non-allocables.
So, when we say allocables, this is the budget ceiling na binibigay ng DPWH. Therefore, it's coming from the executive. Yan. Sila ang nagtakda kung ano yung budget ceiling ng bawat congressional district. So, these are all DPWH projects. But, so they also give the district congressman, way before the NEP is passed, the NEP is crafted, they give a menu of projects and the congressman gets to decide kung anong mga proyekto yung gusto niya, essentially. So, kaya tinatawag na, I guess, pork siya because it's based on the discretion of the congressman. Now, I've based on the, what lawmakers have told me, they can also still request beyond the budget ceiling. Kasi, syempre, wish list nila yun na iniisip nila baka mapagbigyan pa more than the budget ceiling. So, essentially, while there is that fixed allocable amount, it can still change on the final version of the NEP. And based on the affidavit of former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo, it is si Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral who vets the wish lists and essentially decides kung ano yung magiging final na halaga ng allocable ni District Congressman sa NEP. But then, di ba, ang NEP, we know it's the President's budget, but who has the power of the purse? It's Congress. So kapag nalipat na yung list ng allocables na yan sa GAA or nag-go through na yan sa deliberations, pwede pa rin siyang maging zero kasi mga congressman na yung nagde-decide. And we saw that, with Duterte allied lawmakers, specifically Davao City 1st District Davao City 1st District Representative Paulo Duterte, wherein in the final version of the budget, which is the General Appropriations Act, it was decimated to zero. And it's not only him, but also other Duterte allied lawmakers. So, while yung allocable, it's fixed, it can still change habang gumagalaw yung budget process.
Now, for the DPWH allocable budget of Paulo Duterte, zero.
In the 2020, so lahat ng district congressman may formula. Pero since Congress can still scrutinize essentially the budget, nakita natin na ginawang zero yung sa distrito niya sa final version ng GAA.
So it could be, you're right to point out that since it is discretionary funds, it could be prone to political retribution. No? Kung sino yung pabor, no? Okay, yung non-allocables naman, pero yung allocables, ito ay sa congressman lang.
District congressman.
Ina-assign,
yes.
Oo, district congressman. Pero yung
what we know so far is yes,
non-allocables,
it's district congressman. Yeah, what we know so far is it is assigned to district congressmen, and this has been confirmed by former Undersecretary Bernardo. Now, the thing with non-allocables is we termed it as a free-for-all pork because based again on the interviews and yung testimonies ng mga DPWH whistleblowers, kung sino-sino yung pwedeng magpasok dyan. Pwedeng lawmakers, party list man yan o district, pwedeng senators, pwedeng executive officials. Now, I would have wanted, or we would have wanted to really pinpoint who had the most influential hand in inserting projects in the non-allocables. But again, that's the reason why I had to, reach out to DPWH, and repeatedly they would not respond. And I mean, they would respond, but they kept on, hindi nila binibigay. They would entertain the questions, the requests, but until now, I still don't have that list. And so the desperate journalists in me reached out to the ones who were, outspoken about it. But
of course, this is already the new DPWH administration under Secretary Vince Dizon. That would not release the list to you, just to be clear.
Yes.
Okay.
But it would be in their interest to do that because if they're in the process of essentially making everything more transparent, then I think there shouldn't be any hurdle for them not to release that. But yeah.
Okay, so the non-allocables, what kinds of projects could be under this?
So we've seen that flood control ay naging part na nun based on the hearings then, diba, si former House Appropriations Chair Zaldico ay nagpababa daw ng mga proyekto sa iba't ibang distrito. So it can be, a lawmaker, it could be flood control projects, but it could really be any kind of DPWH project. Lodged either in district engineering offices or even regional offices.
So now, forced itong mga district congressmen to accept these projects in their districts kung napondohan ng DPWH.
So I cannot say if they're forced to accept those because I think we're all familiar na din with the concept of parking and sagasa. So I think this is where it comes in, right? The non-allocables na some of them, there are these I guess, negotiations from yung gustong magpasok sa distrito nila. But yung iba, so that's parking. So may parking fee din si district congressman who accepts projects na hindi siya yung nagpasok essentially. Pero pwede din kasing sagasa, meaning magugulat na lang siya na, oh, may pumasok pala in my district. There's this former lawmaker who I showed like, snippets of like the budget in his district, and he told me, oh, he knows that this is the amount of his allocable, but hindi niya alam kung bakit or saan nanggaling yung non-allocables niya. So, for some of these district congressmen, at least in the 19th Congress,
They are unaware.
Yes, ngayon lang din nila nalalaman. So,
Okay. At least, do you have at least a list of the projects under the non-allocable?
so that's also one of the requests for DPWH. But
Wala
no,
din. Wala din. Okay.
But
So
I
among
would
the two,
say-
ito yung pwedeng rife with corruption, ano?
I don't want to say that one is more corrupt than the other because they're all based on the discretion of these politicians, of these executive officials, right? So
Okay. So what were the findings with your data? Alam na natin kasama doon na that the presidential son and House Speaker had the biggest allocable amount. What struck you with the findings?
I think that's really the biggest one, though I don't think it's really that egregious in the sense that kamag-anak eh. And I mean, based historically, the ones who get the biggest fork are the ones closest to the executive. So I guess that's the biggest finding. But I guess one thing that maybe I miss in terms of like just analyzing is I guess the third on the list sa allocables, I think si Lino Cayetano, which is the brother of the Cayetanos, nag-comment siya dun sa Facebook post and nagtataka siya, why would that congressman have that much? Why would he be the third? So honestly, what I've written in the story so far, those are the biggest findings. But journalists, everyone needs to look at this because yun nga, like, we don't have the monopoly of whatever the truth is. So yeah, I guess those are the biggest that's the biggest findings, and also the fact that in the final version of the GAA is na zero yung allocables ng mga Duterte allied lawmakers. And then obviously also the last, I think what makes the story complete really and makes it still relevant is how it affected the 2026 budget that is still being scrutinized by the senators. So yeah.
Habang hindi pa pinapasa, pwede pang i-arrest itong 2026 DPWH budget. Ano? You're right to point that out. I guess the timing of the release, I think is perfect. No, we hope that everybody looks at this. But I want to also ask about the BBM parametric formula that you pointed out. Have you seen that? How were you able to get a hold of that formula? And what can you tell us about it?
So as the journalists, we have to protect our sources. But I will say that I guess I was just persistent in trying to figure what the formula is. So I tried to contact people who I think might have the information, and they gave the information. So yun, actually it's 16 pages. So I love math, right? I like solving equations, whatever. But even me, I also didn't understand it. But based on the computation, or based on what I've read, it's based on like yung poverty levels dun sa region or sa distrito and sa poverty. But then there's this, I think, one line that kind of make like that's kind of interesting, which is yun nga, pwedeng in legislative districts, pwede pa rin siyang dagdagan performance premium and budget implementation. So, pwede pa rin taasan or may discretion din kung sino gumawa ng formula na dagdagan yung ilang legislative districts based again on like many factors. But again, even former Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo said na even he doesn't understand it, and I've asked Secretary Vince Tizon if he understands it, and repeatedly he would say na hindi niya pa rin daw naiintindihan. So I think
Pero they confirm this, no? They confirm this BBM parametric formula.
Which one?
Ito talagang ginagamit in the previous to determine the allocables.
So I tried reaching out to them, but they haven't confirmed. So it's really based on the I guess the trust level on the source who gave this to me, and also at the same time, the qualifiers that former undersecretaries would say about this budget.
Well, what is troubling to me is that it has the president's fingerprint all over it, BBM parametric formula, which stands for baseline, balanced, and managed. With the qualifications that you mentioned, yung equitability na allocation per region, meron ding poverty alleviation, and the performance premium in budget implementation that you mentioned.
Yes,
so a lot
I think,
to look.
I think maybe the former undersecretary would be questioned about this, but to explain more in a laymanized manner how they formulated it, and why is it that the presidential son and the presidential cousin eventually got the highest.
Okay. Maraming salamat sa iyo for joining us and helping us understand this. So we hope more will be uncovered. You're right in pointing this out. And we hope that changes will still be done with the 2026 budget. At maglabas na sana ng listahan itong DPWH. Maraming salamat. We have PCIJ reporter Gwen Latoza, author of the latest report on allocables and non-allocables. Meanwhile, the Philippine Consulate General in Hong Kong has confirmed the death of a Filipino OFW in Tai Po apartment fire. The Filipina, identified as Mary Ann Pascual Esteban, was previously reported missing. Migrant Worker Secretary Hans Kakdak and OWA Administrator P. Kaunan visited her family in Cainta, Rizal to convey the news. They assured support for Esteban's child's education up to college. Efforts will also be made to immediately repatriate the remains of the deceased OFW. The death toll from Hong Kong's worst fire in decades has climbed to 146 as of Sunday. To get more updates on this, we have Consul General Romulo Victor Israel Jr. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Consul General.
Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat.
Okay, una-una ho, yung identity po nitong isang Pilipinang nasawi. Ito rin po ba yung OFW nakakarating lang sa Hong Kong?
Okay, salamat po. I think we really need to clarify baka kung confuse ang ating audience. We have two Filipinos nung una na report nga po, one missing and one injured. And then we came out with a statement na may isa nga pong nasawi. So we just wanted to clarify yung kung injured natin na babayan ay safe po siya ngayon, nasa hospital, recovering. And yung isa po nating missing, yun po ang na-confirm na siya po kasama sa mga fatalities.
Okay, and this Filipina, was she living? What was her line of work?
Well, she's the term that we use here in Hong Kong is foreign domestic worker. So she's with her ward when the fire broke out. Yung ward ko niya is a 5-year-old girl, and tapos yung body ko niya recover before her body was confirmed.
Oo. And would you have any idea what happened to her? Hindi na siya nakatakas, nakaalis?
Well, exactly what really happened, for sure, kasi po, siyempre, nung nag-rescue po ang fire department, so lahat po nung after na-put out yung fire ay kung saan po sila may makuhang body, po kaya agad ang nilalabas. And of course, they don't know sino yung body na yun na nilalabas nila. So, they don't know exactly kung saan siya nakuha. But for sure, naiwan ho silang dalawa yung kanyang binabantayang alaga.
Meron pa po ba tayong mga Pilipino na binabantayan, inaantay to come out of this fire?
I just want to share ho na meron tayong total of 93 na kababayan na may nakalisted po sila sa ating record sa BMW na may address po doon sa Wang Phuc Port sa Tai Po. Out of the 93, ay 60 po yung talagang on the ground nagtatrabaho po sa location na yun. So iba ho ay umuwi na ng Pilipinas, ang iba ay lumito ng address dahil ang employer ay lumimis na. At mayroon din iba doon na bagong dating na. So 60 po, 60 yung safe at mayroon nga po isang injured at may isa pong nasawi. So total of 62. Doon sa 60 po, yes.
Go ahead.
So, yung sa 60 po na yun, sila po yung bibigyan natin siyempre ng assistance sa documentation, kung sila ay nawala ng passport, matutulungan sa immigration, kung kailangan ng bagong something ID, at siyempre yung pag-recover, then, logically, meron pa tayong stress debuting na pinibigay.
Okay. Bilang Pangulo, kasi wala na ho tayong oras, para sa mga nanonood na nakatira din po sa mga high-rise, so have they been able to get down to the bottom of why this fire spread so quickly? There was this debate over the bamboo scaffolding and also the netting. Meron na po bang resulta?
Well, yeah, it's really an issue now. Excuse me. Kaya nga po yung other construction projects ay napepending ngayon dahil nalilipit na po ang fire service department sa paggamit ng materials. They are not saying this is allowed, this is not allowed. Basta sabi lang nila, dapat fire resistant, dapat up to standard yung material nila. So kung makita nila yung material is not standard, then hindi po nila kapanahan. And of course, based on nabas na news, initial report ay talagang doon kasi nag-start sa mesh, sa netting ng pabalot po sa scaffolding, saka yung course ng bamboo. Kaya napakabilis ng pagbalatan po. At mahangin din po.
Oo nga ho eh. Pero yung bamboo, yun po ba, hindi po siya nasunog, ano? Kasi may mga litrato na intact pa rin siya eh.
Yes, so mga iba ho, yung mga bagsak na lang, wala na lang support na lang. I guess yung talagang, ako personally lang, I think yung talagang parang making fuel eh. Baka dahil sa tagal na rin ho, dahil yung kung lahat na nakabalot doon ay year out, exposed to elements, hangin, sa tubig, sa ulan, sa sunlight, ay nag-breakdown din.
Okay. Okay, Consul General, I'm sorry we don't have a lot of time, but we'll probably have you on our other shows, just to get more details as to what happened. But thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us an update. 1 Filipino has died, 1 injured, and 93 others have been rescued from this terrible fire in Hong Kong. In the meantime, maraming salamat, Consul General Romulo Victor Israel Jr. for joining us on Morning Matters today. And that wraps up today's episode. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Happy December.